Hi everyone, I'm Jack Crawford, and it's time to review Dreams by Media Molecule. Media Molecule are the creators of some very unique games like Little Big Planet and Tearaway. I have a lot of respect for them, especially because I'm increasingly disappointed with Sony's first-party studios in recent years. I still like some of their games, but there used to be so much more variety. It feels like several of those studios lost the identity that made their games unique in the first place. Meanwhile, Media Molecule just keeps moving in their own very weird direction. Dreams has been in development for around 8 years, and it's basically the logical conclusion to the design ideas behind Little Big Planet. With Little Big Planet 2 especially, they started to evolve the concept of a level editor. But with Dreams, they've made the massive leap to a completely open-ended, full game creation system. Dreams is essentially an art creation tool, a music creation tool, a game logic, physics, movement creation tool, a level editor, and a platform to share your creations all in one. Keep in mind, this is not on PC, this is in a single game on PS4. Everything I just described can be controlled with a standard PS4 controller. This was obviously quite an ambitious undertaking, and it took 8 years, but they totally did it. This seems like exactly the game they wanted to make. If I were reviewing Dreams based on my understanding of the developer's vision for the game, I would have nothing but praise for it. But I'm not. I'm reviewing it from my perspective as a player. I spent a lot of time in Dreams, learning how it works, experimenting with all the tools, and playing plenty of games, trying to find the best and most interesting ones. As much as it pains me to say it, I got almost nothing out of it. As it stands right now, Dreams is not for me, and I don't think it's for most people either. Let me take you on a quick tour of some of the very best games in Dreams. Media Molecule themselves made a game called Art's Dream that's about 2 hours long and meant to show some of the different kinds of things dreams can do. It's a good showcase from an art and audio perspective, but not from a gameplay perspective. It was very story heavy, and the story was just okay. The point-and-click adventure segments were very tedious, and the other segments just didn't do anything special. They all felt like the most generic examples of their respective genres. None of the movement felt good either, which was the biggest red flag for me, and sure enough, it was the most pervasive issue in player-created Dreams as well. There was a very strong trend of the best games being pretty simple. I liked the ideas behind some of these, but none held my attention for very long. They have somewhat compelling gameplay, which is very rare in Dreams at the moment, but they're all too similar to a bunch of games I've played before. Speaking of games I've played before, this Wipeout clone was the most impressive clone I found. It obviously looks good, and it feels kind of okay, but still pretty rough compared to actual Wipeout. And finally, there were the games that just threw together a few cheap gags. I think I enjoyed these games the most. There are also some non-game creations like short films and sculptures, and once again, I enjoyed the memes more than anything else. By the way, to find everything I just showed, I had to wade through tons of garbage, like Great Value Call of Duty, Great Value Sekiro, Great Value Elder Scrolls. I think you get the idea. I mean no disrespect toward these creators, by the way. In fact, Great Value Elder Scrolls was easily one of the most impressive games I found. But that's precisely the problem. People have been making games in Dreams Early Access for almost a year, and in beta even before that. So I have to wonder, why can I not find a single worthwhile game in hours of searching? I can't find any major flaws in the creation tools. In fact, I imagine there are workflow and interface ideas in Dreams that will make their way into professional tools in the future. I'm not exactly well-versed in any of the comparable professional software, so maybe I'm wrong about that, but you can tell from what's been made already that the art tools are extremely powerful. The gameplay-related tools are seemingly less powerful than blueprints in Unreal Engine, for instance, but much easier to learn and start making something quickly. I think they made reasonable compromises here. I'm sure there are crazy experimental game ideas that just wouldn't work in Dreams, but that's not really the point. My hope is that people will make games in established styles like 3D platformers and first-person shooters, but with creative ideas that make them worth playing, and that certainly seems possible. So if the problem isn't with the tools, maybe the lack of good games was inevitable. To explain what I mean, I'd like to point out an important distinction between Dreams and something like Super Mario Maker. I think Mario Maker is great. You find so many levels in there that Nintendo would never make because they go against so many standard game design practices. And naturally, a lot of them are terrible, but some of them are pretty amazing. These bizarre outsider art level designs are often enjoyable because they're so different. They're refreshing. But it's easy to look at Mario Maker and feel like those level ideas are carrying the game, when in reality, designing a level is a tiny part of making a good game. You have to appreciate the effort that went into the art, animations, audio, physics, and so on, so that moving around and interacting with all the different objects and enemies is satisfying by default. That's why Dreams is completely different. When someone wants to make a game in Dreams, the gap in effort between having an idea and making that idea a reality is enormous. Dreams is special because it's extremely user-friendly. It has excellent tutorials designed to be accessible for everyone, and you can work pretty quickly, especially considering it's on a console. But none of that changes the fact that making a game is work. You have to put in the hours. Most people can't make a good 3D platformer, for example, by themselves. It takes a larger team, thousands of hours per person. Take Little Big Planet 2 as another counterexample. People made all kinds of levels in that game, but the best ones mostly just took advantage of the game's existing systems. They used the physics, animations, and so on from Little Big Planet, and made creative new platforming levels, or turned it into a survival game, or whatever. The levels that were totally left field, like twin-stick shooters basically built from the ground up, were just novelties. Media Molecule leaned into that angle, and now everything in Dreams is a novelty. With all that said, it's important to keep in mind that this is only the current state of Dreams. Media Molecule have said their goal is to continue expanding the game for 20 years. It's impossible to know for sure how it'll develop over that time, but there's at least some reason to believe it'll get better. There's a system called remixing, where you can take others' work, whether that's chunks of game logic, art assets, music, even full scenes, and use it in your own games. I can imagine the community slowly building up a pool of good stuff until eventually someone can just come in and design a level for a game because all the other work has already been done. I'm skeptical about that happening anytime soon, though, because currently most of the best work is set to be non-remixable. There are also arguments to be made about this entire model of unstructured collaboration, but this is all just speculation, not really relevant to a current review of Dreams. I think now is a good time to remind everyone that when I give a game a score, it's entirely based on my own perspective at the time that I played it. Dreams does exactly what it was meant to do, and I'm happy it exists. I have to imagine there are people out there getting excited about creating games, or just animations or music. And that's great. If you're interested in any of that stuff, but the equivalent professional software seems too daunting, I actually would wholeheartedly recommend Dreams to you. But personally, I didn't find it worth my time, and I don't recommend it to most people. I will check back in after it's had some time to develop, but as of now, I'm giving Dreams a 2 out of 10. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this one. Link me your favorite Dreams games if you want. Feel free to suggest any other new games for me to review. Also, check out my other videos if you haven't already, and thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.